So now on to prana, which we'll utilize more and more in our meditation. So once again, it means before breath, prana. And pranayama, yama means observance. So to direct one's attention to what is more and more subtle is essentially what this is pointing us to. And in doing that, mind becomes calmer and calmer and calmer. We give it a focus that becomes more and more subtle, and at some point that line disappears. Next is the Yoga Sutra on prana, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra that we've seen the first 4 stanzas of. Pranayama has 3 aspects: external or outward flow, internal or inward flow, and the absence of both during the transition phase between them. The 4th aspect of pranayama is beyond or behind the external and internal flows. It is practiced by attending to the transition phase. The practice of meditation where there is no movement of thought leads to the arrest of the flow of prana. These yoga methods bring about the desired results only if they are practiced without violence or force. From the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is 15th or 16th century text. And this is the big text on Hatha Yoga, the postures and so on. And this text lists 15 postures, and most of them are variations of the sitting position. So it's not talking about the warrior pose and so on and so on. The asanas taught by Shiva are 84 in number. Of these, I will describe the 4 most important. They are all variations of the seated meditation pose. When the proper flow of prana is created and maintained, illnesses abate. When the practice of pranayama is faulty, all manner of diseases arise. The symptoms display where the flow of prana has been improperly constrained or drained. Now, I remember having a client many years ago in Toronto. She was young, very slight. She had gone to Kripalu Yoga Center and attended a class on what's called pranayama, and there was this rapid inhale exhale going on, and she just blew her nervous system out. And after that, she came to me, and she was in a wheelchair. She was feeling so much sensation by igniting all of that she couldn't move, she couldn't walk, she couldn't sleep, she was just a mess. And so one must be careful in working with these, even with breath. So Ayurveda is a sister discipline of yoga, which is classical Indian medicine. There is a great knowledge base there about the kind of diet that is supportive to meditation practice, where one is becoming more and more aware of sensations and breath and prana and chi and so on. And often such diets are very heavy in dairy products, because in India a lot of people are vegetarian. If they weren't vegetarian, then they would have to rely on meat to keep grounded and heavy enough. Otherwise, one can harm themselves. So, but what we're going to be doing here, we're not going to be pushing the flow of prana. We're not going to make it so wild that you could feel it without having to meditate. We're going to instead refine our ability to become aware of the subtle prana that's already there. So it's not a dangerous process, taking it on this way. Some advice from Buddha in one of his discourses. Once established in a stable meditation pose, one should focus their awareness on breath, prana. When breathing in long, one should be aware that breath is long. When breathing in short, one should be aware that breath is short. Further, one should become aware of the whole body of sensations during the breath. Then, there should be a calming of breath and sensations. This practice should be strengthened so that one keeps aware of breath, whether sitting, lying down, or standing. There should be an awareness of breath during eating, drinking, talking, remaining silent, falling asleep, and waking up. One should keep aware of breath, whether focused internally or externally. The ending of agitation is for one who sees the difference between appropriate and inappropriate attention to arisen thoughts. Inappropriately attending, one thinks, how did self and world come to be? Did I or did I not have a past life? What and how was I in the past? Shall I or shall I not have a future life? What and how shall I be in the future? In unnecessarily attending to these thoughts, various views of self arise. These range from self as identical with the body and thus will cease to be at the demise of the body to myself is constant, never changing, and eternal. This is being caught in a fetter of views, since the origin of self and world and the precise formulation of the law of karma cannot be thought about to a completion. What was my past life already has some assumption built into what I mean by I. And we must examine if what I mean by I, if I've associated that with body, then if I don't examine that itself, then I might begin to wonder, well, will I get another one? And if I do, does that mean I have a soul? All these questions come, and Buddha's saying, don't go there. Stop. You'll create more and more worldviews that you haven't substantiated, you haven't looked at carefully, you haven't examined in a direct way. And if you do that, this is called being caught in a fetter of views. Because whatever it is that we're going to find out is beyond any thought formula, although some are helpful in some ways. But one very important thing that thought can arrive at is its own limitation. And if once that is seen by thought, then it'll quiet down. There are people at various stages of knowledge. And what the enlightened teachers have done is that they have looked at the person that's in front of them and said, for now, work within this model, and over time I'll bring you into a clearer understanding which will surpass whatever word formula that you have right now. And so there are, gazillion gods in India. At first, they're kind of gods that are kind of real. But then the further one goes into the study, then one is closer to this idea of non-duality, and the gods are not so solid and real. So all that changes as one progresses with their knowledge. And Buddha is, in his clarity, almost befuddling to most people. It's not what he's saying is so far beyond what most people are ready to entertain. There's an aspect of what Buddha is saying which is applicable anywhere all the time, which is how to be. So Buddha also says, and I'm going to talk about a slide that hasn't come up yet, but once he was traveling through a village, and in a village a people called the Kalama lived there, and Buddha was speaking with them, and they asked, many teachers come to our village and they offer a teaching and then sometime later another teacher comes and offers another teaching, and we have all these teachings. How should we decide what to believe? Whose teaching to take on? And they were talking about one specific example was some teachers say that at death, that's it. Some teachers say that at death there is another life. Or there is a continuity after death. And Buddha said, well, you might think or believe that at death that's it, but you might be wrong. You might think there's a continuity, but you might be wrong. You don't know. These are two views that are coming at you. So he said, what would an intelligent person do? He would say that I may believe that there is no continuity, but there might be. So I had better conduct myself in a very ethical way, because there might be a continuity. That would be one intelligent response, because you don't know. Even if you say that there isn't, you could be wrong. He continues, and he says, well, how should one arrive at the decision of whether to take on a certain belief? And he says, one should test that belief as to its ability to lead to a decrease of greed and hatred. If it does that, then that view is helpful. And if it no longer does that at some point, then drop that view. If you must have a view, get another view. But for those people that understand the limit of thought, he didn't give that kind of answer. He just said, look, all views are just things that are rattling in your mind, and they all have to come to an end, because what I'm teaching, nirvana, is not graspable in words. So to those people, he gave advice which was very, very ethically sound, that didn't kind of rock their world, but there would be a few people in there that would come closer to Buddha, join his group, and then he would give them a deeper teaching. And we see the same thing in India at large. So for those people that need to have some fear of the afterlife, or some fear of God saying this, well, that's what you need to be an ethical person. We're not taking that away just yet. Because it's not only is it dangerous to other people, it's actually dangerous to you in ways you don't even understand yet. So Patanjali starts off with the ethical ground. Until that's there, no more teaching is done.